This podcast is an invitation to feel and experience the souls of famous old Hollywood homes and to have an in-depth journey to the areas where they're located through interviews with longtime residents. Either you're a fan of old Hollywood in Los Angeles, planning to have a vacation, or, an even bigger step, considering a certain area for your future home. This is your opportunity to receive valuable information and insightful advice you won't find anywhere else.
Hello, and welcome to my podcast. Are you in the mood for California? Today we'll experience what it truly means to create not just art, but experiences, and how we can step into someone's imagination and become part of it.
Everybody put in everything they had to make it happen against some significant odds, like in doing something new and different and integrating these technologies and these mediums in a new way. So that was certainly challenging, but I think what was even more harrowing was the capacity to nurture the soul of the project in that environment, to be able to really hold and share what is sacred. It's a very vulnerable place, very, very heartfelt story. This aspect has a sacred quality to it. So very often it felt like you just have this teeny candle that you're trying to keep lit in this tornado going on around you.
Masha Korpacheva is a California-based realtor and a member of the National Association of Realtors in Los Angeles. She's an advocate for selling and buying homes with soul and practicing mindfulness in real estate. With master's degrees in spiritual psychology and linguistics, Masha brings all of her skills to work with her clients. An intuit and empath, she has touched many lives with her outstanding ability to see beyond the visible and helping to come to better understanding of issues and their resolutions. An adventurous world traveler, from climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania to exploring the Galapagos Islands, Masha has a particular passion for the City of Angels. Having landed in this paradise and adopted it as her home, she's been sharing old Hollywood stories since 2007. In the mood for California, feel the soul of old Hollywood.
And now, are you ready to go on an immersive artistic journey? There is a quiet kind of magic that lives by Lake Merritt in Oakland. It doesn't announce itself loudly, and it doesn't rely on technology or spectacle. It simply waits to be discovered. In 1950, long before the words immersive experience or interactive art existed, a small park opened its gates. It was called Children's Fairyland. Built at a child's scale, filled with storybook sets and crooked little houses, it invited children not just to hear stories, but to walk inside them. That was its quiet revolution. Children could climb into the old woman's shoe, wander through dreamlike spaces, unlock stories with tiny magic keys. There was no separation between observer and participant. You didn't watch the story, you became part of it. And in that simple, almost innocent idea, something profound was born. Walt Disney himself visited Fairyland and carried its spirit into Disneyland. But what fairy tale truly gave California was something deeper than inspiration for theme parks. It planted a seed, a way of thinking about art not as something we look at, but something we enter. California, in its own way, kept nurturing that seed. From experimental art along the bay to architectural spaces that blurred the line between structure and spirit, to the rise of immersive storytelling. The idea continued to evolve, and decades later, artists like Jeff Hall began creative entire worlds where the audience is no longer separate but essential. Recently, I had the privilege of experiencing the cortege, and what a special night it was. From the moment we arrived, we were enveloped in a rich tapestry of sound, light, movement, and community. It was a multi-sensory experience in its truest sense. Unexpected effects, giant puppets, drones carving the night sky, and an atmosphere that felt both expansive and deeply intimate. But what struck me most wasn't the spectacle, though it was breathtaking. It was the feeling of being gently invited in. When we stepped into the space where the performance unfolded, something shifted. The boundary between performer and audience dissolved, and suddenly we were no longer watching. We were part of it, moving within it, feeling it together. And the real effect was connection. Connection with my husband, with the people around us, with something invisible yet deeply present, the spirit of the experience itself. After the performance, we gathered in a softly lit tent for a tea ceremony, accompanied by live music. It was quiet, grounding, almost sacred, a space to land, to reflect, to simply be. We even ran into a few friends, a gentle reminder that Los Angeles, for all its vastness, can feel like a small village when hearts are open. And of course, meeting Jeff Hall added another layer of meaning. Hearing him speak about his journey and his belief that imagination is his superpower made everything feel even more intentional. You could sense that this wasn't just a production. It was something lived, something deeply felt, something offered. And in that moment, I couldn't help but think back to that small park in Oakland, a child stepping into a story, a door opening into imagination, a space where participation becomes the experience itself. The thread is still there, from children's fairyland to the cortege, different forms, different scales, but the same essence, an invitation. If you ever get the chance to experience the cortege, go with an open heart. Leave a little space in your expectations because what you receive may not be what you anticipated. It may be something much more meaningful. A reminder that when we gather, strangers and friends alike, something awakens. A quiet knowing that we are not separate, that we are part of something shared, connected by an invisible thread of wonder. And here we are. Welcome to California. It is such a treat to have Jeff Hall with me today. Jeff Hall is an Oakland-based American artist and producer known for creating large-scale participatory experiences that blend storytelling, performance, and real-world environments. He is the founder and director of Nonchalance, a studio focused on immersive experiences and pervasive play, developing projects such as the Jejune Institute and Latitude Society. The Jejune Institute was later documented in the film The Institute. Hall is also the creator of Oaklandish, a cultural street art and apparel project through which he produced over 100 public events, led community initiatives, and founded the Oakland Innovators Awards. In film and television, he has worked as a writer and producer, including serving as a consultant and executive producer on AMC's Dispatches from Elsewhere, while also creating immersive podcasts and directing branding and entertainment projects. More recently, he created The Cortege, an immersive theatrical experience in Los Angeles exploring transformation, loss, and collective experience. Today, Jeff will share with us what it truly means to create not just art, but experiences, how imagination becomes something we can step into, feel, and remember. He will take us into his journey, his process, and the deeper intention behind his work. Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Maria.
Oh my God, Jeff. Well, first of all, thank you so much for finding the time in your extremely busy schedule to have this conversation with me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. I'm happy to be here.
And I've been looking forward to talking to you after this incredible show that I saw you created and put together here in Los Angeles, in Burbank. But before we go into it, I'd like to ask you something about California, this incredible state. It's a very, very unique place. And you have been born here in Oakland. And California does have this very mythic quality about it. And from the world of theme parks to groundbreaking immersive art. So as someone who was born and raised in Oakland, and you were deeply rooted in California's creative culture, how would you describe the vibe of California as an environment for an artist? What about this place that feeds your imagination or maybe even challenges it?
Yeah, that's a great place to start. And I think that the essence that you're speaking to is something that I see and I feel when I'm traveling the world, when I'm in other continents and in other cultures and countries, and I'll see people that stand out, namely, if I see a guy in a biker gang jacket in a motorcycle club, I'm thinking about the Hells Angels in Oakland, and I'm thinking how Sonny Barger really minted that look in the 60s and that ethic, or if I see somebody in a tie-dye and, holding up a peace sign, I'm thinking about the Haight-Ashbury and how the Summer of Love really spawned, a global movement. Or if I'm seeing somebody who's kind of rocking a gangster look or a cholo lowrider vibe, which is subcultures popping up in Japan or something, I'm thinking about East Los Angeles. And the list just kind of goes on from there.
Mm-hmm.
You think about the Black Power movement, or you think about Laurel Canyon and the music that came out of there, or you see everybody on their mobile device and you know that technology came from here in the Bay Area. And what is it about that frontier spirit? What is it about the pioneers and the groundbreakers, or those who were willing to be in an uncomfortable place or a place of lawlessness or a place of innovation? And that really, I think, represents a spirit.
How interesting. And you notice it or become more aware of it when you're traveling.
Yeah, I just see these signifiers that I can tie back to California and sometimes more specifically Oakland.
Interesting. Very interesting. So if someone has never been to California and let's say they're planning their trip and they ask you, Jeff, what is California about? How would you describe it to this person? Is it worthwhile visiting?
Oh, certainly. But it's you have to tell them that it's like a country, the size of a country. So it's not like you're just coming to the state. It's you have to treat it like its own entity. And culturally, I'm probably not the most in touch person to tell you exactly. I don't have my finger on the pulse of the culture at the moment because it's changed so much.
Mm-hmm.
But geographically, I would start somebody on my favorite old growth redwood trail, and I would say, well, do we want to go to the beach, or do we want to go to the mountains, or do we want to go to the desert, or do we want to go, to the city?
Yes, so true. California is extremely diverse, and you're so true that it is the size of a country, and it does feel like a country in and of itself. It's just remarkable.
Yeah, I really wish we would, just become our own nation.
Yeah, maybe one day, you never know. So, Jeff, you have spoken about your earlier experiences performing at Children's Fairyland. And this place is not that known, but it's actually the place that inspired Disneyland in some way. So this space was designed for wonder and for play. So how did this formative experience shape your belief in play as a form of art, and the idea that art should actually invite participation rather than passive viewership?
Yeah. So, yeah. Children's Fairyland in Oakland on the shores of Lake Merritt. I happened to be a child performer there in 1979. I played Jack of Jack and Jill. My sister Kristen was Jill, and we'd wander through the park, interacting with kids, and we would like be in the St. Patrick's Day parade or something like this. And this is a place where you can literally like slide down a rabbit hole, or you can follow a yellow brick road, or you can put the magic key into a storybook that will suddenly be telling you a narrative story while you're looking at this installation or a diorama. And so that, I think, is like a origin or prototype for what has become like immersive art and has influenced theme park design and really entertainment from the 20th into the 21st century. But it has this charm to it, this folk quality. And when I was in this environment, on a daily basis at this formative age, I would go back into the rest of the world. And instead of that sense of wonder or that sense of discovery or play, I would just see like walk, don't walk, and signs and no trespassing and all these barriers and barricades. And those barriers and barricades have increased over the decades. The sense we're in a security state, or the sense that we're not supposed to explore, or we're not supposed to wander off path. Like that's something that may be a time of the past in our civic life, but it's an important thing that we're missing. That sense of just wandering, that sense of like happy accidents, the sense that we have permission to be agents in our own world. So yeah, it's very much a part of my upbringing and very much inspired my work ever since.
Yes. And when we met after the performance of the cortege, though I cannot call it even the performance, but this experience, very immersive experience, the cortege, it was truly mind-blowing. And that scale of creativity, like from music to movement to procession to ritual, it must be intensely complex to produce. So what was the hardest part of bringing it to life, maybe logistically or maybe even emotionally? And maybe there was something that surprised you during that process.
Yeah, so it was very technically difficult to produce. And there was all manner of obstacles and resistance, and everybody put in everything they had to make it happen against some significant odds, like in doing something new and different and integrating this technologies and these mediums in a new way. So that was certainly challenging, but I think what was even more harrowing was the capacity to nurture the soul of the project in that environment, to be able to like really hold and share what is sacred. It's a very vulnerable place, very, very heartfelt story. This aspect has a sacred quality to it. So very often it felt like you just have this teeny candle that you're trying to keep lit in this like tornado going on around you, like heavy duty hardware and large scale pieces of technology and a lot of teams and people and vendors and contractors and site specific things. And like, you're just trying to keep this little bit of spirit alive within that. And that was the part that felt very delicate, but I'm really proud of what we were able to do in that way.
Yes, yes. You know what? The way you're describing this part, I think this is what touched me personally. Because when you are part of the audience, you come to see a play or a performance or a concert, and then you do not really identify with it. You just sit and you watch and you see how you feel. And definitely the cortege was very innovative in so many ways. And to begin with, that it was outside and it was getting dark and all these lights were around and so many interesting creatures appearing in various costumes. And then those automated dogs, it was like, wow, like what time is it from? But when the procession came to an end, it was not really the end of the performance. I remember how people started, getting onto the stage or like the centerpiece where the procession was happening. And I just could not even sit at my place. I had to instantly stand up and go and become part of it because it was something that a life that, soul that somehow we were all touched with, that you just described so well, that was bringing us out and us wanting to be part of the procession. So what does it mean to you personally to invite people into this narrative, this lived narrative? Because you created this whole life in front of us, but then you didn't just create it, you invited us to become a part of it, not only as spectators, but physically. So we wanted to be in it. So what does it mean to you?
Oh, thank you so much for your words and sharing your experience with that. And you really tapped into the purpose of the entire piece. And it's something that while it is can be considered like something new or different or innovative, actually the pieces that the ingredients of this alchemical recipe are elements that we've been doing for thousands of years. So it's a shamanic experience. It's a transformative experience. It's a bridge between worlds. And the way that people have been doing that in the past is through ceremony, through medicine work, through chanting, through the beating of a drum, through music, through movement, and it's something that we just forgot on our way to the new world, on the way out here to California. We may have forgot these things from the old worlds or from this general diaspora. And it's not just a diaspora of history, it's a diaspora of meaning. We've lost central meaning, a central purpose here. And I think that's the main ailment of our times. And so it is this act of remembering who we are and who we are together. And we start with this interior experience. That's the headphones, okay? We're going to do a little bit of sensory deprivation and we're going to cover your ears and bring you into an internal, and it's also a wordless space. So there's no language. There's no symbols and signifiers, and there's no analytical words or language for you to figure out. And it's meant to bypass that part of the brain and go into a place of a sensory place and a place of feelings and internal. And so now we have you there, and it's a little bit of a trick because you have the headphones on. You're less likely to kind of chit chat with your neighbor. You're more we have your attention in this way. And now that we have your attention, we're doing the procession, we're doing this parade, which is an ancient act. It's a lost art of pageantry. Mm-hmm. And those costumes, they are mythic archetypes. And the mythic archetypes takes us out of this time and place into a place that is more related to the cosmos and more related to this chronos time or this kairos time, which is a sense of timelessness, a sense of, as I said, it has this mythic proportions. And then we're telling a story. The story is of every man, and every man is you, and every man is me. And we watch as they, kind of grow into their world and build relationships and become initiated. And now that they're initiated, we're inviting you to become initiated too by joining us on the field and becoming part of this procession. And then what happens after? What happens after his ultimate demise? There is that moment of point of no return where all is lost. And is that really the end? And what lies beyond that? And so the evening does not end there. It continues on to the afterlife tent where people are able to lay a flower down upon every man and to share some tea and begin to decompress. And this is another part that we've, that has been part of traditions and cultures and ceremonies for a long time. We're going to set an intention. We're going to share space and create a container for that space. And then we're going to have time of integration afterwards. This is ancient technology. That part is nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I remember that you shared with me back then in the afterlife tent, that the cortege emerged from a time of personal challenge for you. And it was a healing experience that, you undertook, creating this project. So would you like to go a little bit in more detail how you came up with this idea?
Yeah, certainly. So I think that was the big connection for me that I made during the time of the pandemic and the first Trump era. And this was a time when the California wildfires were out of control. And there were days that I walked outside and the sun did not come out. There was no sunrise or sunset or anything differentiating it from night because the thick cloud cover in Northern California. And, at that time, I had an autoimmune disorder. I was walking with a cane. My wife had cancer. I had a sense of betrayal from the creative community I was involved with who were, trying to, and somewhat successfully, canceled me from the immersive movement in California, something I'd been a great contributor for 15 years. And it was all this kind of thing that felt very personal at the time. But then I realized, wait a minute, these things aren't simply happening to me. This is part of something greater that's happening in our civilization right now, that we are feeling isolated from each other. We are feeling a sense of despair about the ecology or about politics or about, there's so many things that we can name. And those things, they can happen in our personal life, in our relationships, or a loss that we experience, or, some other, whether it's economic struggle. It's like, yes, these are personal problems. But then when we just kind of like look up and look around, we see, oh, these are our pains. And my pain is actually connected to the pain we are all feeling. Yeah, I think that was the moment in which I began to conceive of this festive funeral for our times, and the idea that before we can welcome a new world, we must mourn the loss of the world that we knew. And where is the space for us to do that? Where is the space for us to come together and really acknowledge and feel the pain for everything that we've lost as a people?
Wow, this is so profound. And you felt this collective unity on a very individual level. And somehow you were able to create it, put it together for everyone to experience it. But first, it was born in your imagination entirely. And I also remember you saying that imagination is your superpower.
Yes, this is true. I mean, from a very early age, I've lived in my imagination. And I think, as the mythopoetics will tell you, that usually your superpower is tied also to your wound. That they are related in some way. And so, just bringing that a little more into my awareness and my consciousness was part of the work that enabled us to conceive and to develop the cortege.
Wow. And at first you did see everything as a vision or different visions, right? So how did they come to you?
So, I mean, there are origins. Like if you look at the Jejune Institute, the documentary, The Institute, there's this moment where a Sasquatch comes out of the urban environment and hands somebody a map, and there's music and other breakdancers appear. So these kind of interventions I've been doing for a long time. But the idea that a soundtrack can totally alter your reality. So the idea of in-ear headsets, or the idea of these big furry creatures, like that's been like part of my, in the tool set for a long time. And
how did it come up in your mind? Like, did you see it as visions first? Like, how did you create this procession?
Yeah, I think the costumes are probably the very first thing. Like there's these traditions all over the world where there are like seasonal pagan festivals and pageantry and I could name them from Europe to Africa to Latin America and to Asia, and we don't have a great version of that here, but that's where a lot of the visions appeared. And then some of it is through my own meditations or through my own medicine work. But there is a link to this historical, sacred, communal practice that I think I saw as a need that I was driven to. And the imagination knows no bounds. It's not so much what can we do or what should we do. It's like how to turn off the faucet and just focus on one thing. It's more about limiting what you're doing and like sculpting out than it is about building up.
Right, right. That's so true. And Jeff, while you were creating this project, the cortege specifically, did you think about the audience's inner life? Did you want to ask for them to show up open on in any certain way?
Yeah, so that aspect of bringing them into the world and bringing them into a circle and asking them to kind of have some trust in us and really wanting them to put down their shield, put down their sword, and put down their phone and to arrive with us in this place. In different audiences, we were able to do that more than other night. And so there was an orientation, but not at the beginning. At the first, we didn't even have time to conduct an orientation at the very beginning of the show. And there's other ways to kind of prepare people and set them up for this kind of experience. But the pre-show, the performance of the musicians, they're called the Immeasurables, our 6-piece ensemble that did that live show, was really us offering the audience a sedative, very easy piece. And I think it really kind of set the tone at dusk to really ask people to just unwind a little bit and open up to the experience. And I believe many, many people were aligned with that.
Yes, yes. I can attest to that. That's for sure. It was a very special performance and quite unexpected, just to also see this, musicians performing the most beautiful music and the most beautiful setting. Yeah, it was very special.
I'm so glad you were able to experience and come and bring your attention to it.
Yes. And then, I met you and I had so many questions. We didn't have time to talk. So I'm glad that we found this time to discuss it a little bit more details on this podcast. And I hope that you're planning on bringing the cortege back to Los Angeles in 2026.
Indeed. Well, you asked the very best questions, and it won't be in 2026. We're still kind of integrating what we learned and trying to kind of redevelop it in a way that we can bring it to new audiences. And so, we're trying to, build some partnerships in that capacity, but it'll be kind of a long road before we're able to open it up again. But this talking about it is part of the integration process, and it's part of us kind of figuring out wow, what really happened there. So I really welcome and appreciate the conversation.
Yes, well, I appreciate it myself very, very much. And my final question to you is, there are many people in California and all over the world who may find themselves at a time when they crave connection and they yet feel so isolated they do not know how to get this connection or maybe give this connection. So what would be your advice to them, if you have any?
So that's deep, and we're all searching for it in our own ways. And the cortege was intended to be a place of connection to each other, connection to purpose, and a connection to a sense of that which is sacred. And often in that environment, it was hard to actually feel that direct personal connection for me. It was really difficult work. And the event environment in Los Angeles was just very, very challenging to really just take away that moment of spacious presence, right? And so one-on-one, it might be easier to facilitate that. But I mean, I can tell you some of my inspirations that really speak to the connection to something beyond ourselves. And that's this movement of the mythopoetics. And it's Michael Meade, the Living Myth podcast, the Sacred Speak, the Emerald. These are all names of podcasts that are speaking to this revival of these qualities of life. Also including This Jungian Life, which is really a lot about archetypes, the collective unconscious, bringing our shadow into the light, our shadow work. And when we do the shadow work, we start projecting all of our defaults onto other people. And this allows us to connect with people. So I think those were a lot of the inspirations, the things that I was listening to when I was how do I bring this to life? And what qualities do I want to bring to this? Those were very informative.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, Jeff. And well, while we're waiting for the cortege to reappear in Los Angeles, I'm wishing you and your imaginative forces to continue imagining, to continue living and fighting and creating. And so thank you for doing this incredibly hard work, because I honestly think that being an artist in the world, regardless of the country, regardless of the place, is one of the most difficult missions in life. And a person should really feel it in their heart that they're ready to do that. And we appreciate it, and we welcome your art in this world. And we are very grateful to you for doing that.
That is so wonderful to hear, especially right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. And I'm wishing you beautiful weeks and months ahead. And we cannot wait for the cortege to be back in town.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much for tuning in to experience children's fairyland and immersive art with my special guest, Jeff Hull. If you enjoy my podcast, In the Mood for California, please sign up for future episodes at your preferred platform, and please leave your feedback. I really appreciate your time and support. You can also follow me on Instagram at In the Mood for California, and check out my website www.inthemoodforcalifornia.com. Next time, we'll explore what it's like to be born into an acting family and what it truly means to build your own path in Los Angeles, where dreams can be both inherited and discovered. I cannot wait to share this experience with you.
In the Mood for California. Feel the soul of Old Hollywood.